I have to tell you something that might surprise you. For years, the Philippines was seen as small, an island nation often overshadowed by its larger neighbors. But quietly, steadily, and with remarkable resilience, this country has become one of the most important strategic players in the entire Asia-Pacific region. The geography that defines the future. The Philippines sits right in the heart of Asia's most critical crossroads. Look at a map, really look, and you'll see what military planners call the first island chain. It stretches from Japan down through Taiwan and the Philippines, forming a natural barrier across the western Pacific. To the west lies the South China Sea, one of the busiest waterways on Earth. To the east, the vast Pacific Ocean, where global trade and military power meet. Every ship that sails, from the Indian Ocean to Japan, South Korea, or the United States, passes near Philippine waters. Every flight route, every fiber optic cable, every supply chain, many thread through or near this archipelago of more than 7,000 islands. That geography gives the Philippines leverage. But geography alone doesn't make a nation strategic. What truly changed is how Manila learned to use it. From peripheral to central. For decades, the Philippines was often treated as peripheral to major world powers. Important, yes, but not decisive. The United States once held large military bases here during the Cold War, but those were closed in the 1990s after nationalist sentiment grew. For a while, the country turned inward, rebuilding democracy, growing its economy, and focusing on domestic development. But as regional tensions increased, the world's attention began to shift back. In recent years, as nations across the Indo-Pacific started competing for influence and security, the Philippines found itself once again at the center of attention, this time, on its own terms. The rebirth of strategic partnerships. In 2014, the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, was signed between the Philippines and the United States. At first, it was a quiet partnership, focused on training, disaster response, and limited troop rotation. But by 2025, EDCA had evolved into one of the most significant regional defense frameworks in Asia. The United States began investing heavily in logistics hubs, radar systems, and humanitarian support centers throughout the Philippines. Japan followed suit, providing Coast Guard vessels and maritime surveillance technology. Australia joined too, expanding joint naval drills and regional cooperation. What makes this new era different is that it's not about hosting foreign bases. It's about cooperation, shared access, mutual respect, and strategic coordination. The Philippines is no longer a passive partner, it's an active hub. The strategy of the middle power. One of the Philippines' greatest strengths today is its ability to balance. Rather than aligning completely with one superpower, it has positioned itself as a bridge between East and West, between tradition and progress, between independence and cooperation. Manila's approach is pragmatic. Protect national sovereignty, but work with allies who respect its autonomy. This balancing act has turned the country into what analysts call a middle power, with pivotal influence. It may not have the largest military or the biggest economy, but it has something equally valuable: trust. Trust from allies, trust from its neighbors, and growing trust from its own people, that it can stand tall in global affairs. Strategic importance isn't just about military strength, it's also about economics. And here, the Philippines is quietly building a future few are talking about. New deep-water ports in Subic and Batangas are transforming the country into a logistics hub for the Indo-Pacific. Airports in Clark and Cebu are being modernized for high-volume cargo and passenger routes. Fiber optic networks and data centers are expanding to handle Asia's digital trade. Global shipping companies are redirecting routes through Philippine ports to reduce risk from regional tensions. Investors from South Korea, Singapore, and even Europe are pouring billions into manufacturing, renewables, and infrastructure. Step by step, the Philippines is positioning itself as the safe route, the stable hub, and the trusted partner in an unpredictable region. But geography and infrastructure are only half the story. The real reason the Philippines has become so strategic is its people, the diplomats, peacekeepers, and professionals who represent the country abroad. Filipino diplomats are increasingly seen as honest brokers, calm, principled, and focused on building consensus rather than confrontation. In ASEAN meetings, the Philippines often takes on the role of mediator, helping rivals find middle ground. On international missions, Filipino peacekeepers have earned admiration for their compassion and discipline. This culture of diplomacy and humanity has become part of the country's global identity, and it matters. Because in today's world, influence often flows not just from might but from trust and empathy. The return of the sea. Throughout its history, the sea has always been central to the Philippines. From ancient trade with China and the Malay world to modern shipping and fisheries, the ocean defines the Filipino way of life. Today, as nations race to control maritime zones, the Philippines has doubled down on its maritime identity, not through aggression, but through stewardship. The Coast Guard's modernization program emphasizes patrols, search and rescue missions, and environmental protection. Naval academies are training a new generation of officers fluent in technology, law, and diplomacy. And civilian cooperation, especially with fisherfolk communities, has strengthened the nation's awareness of its maritime rights. It's no longer just about defending territory, it's about managing the sea as a shared lifeline for trade, resources, and stability. The Philippines' partnerships extend far beyond defense. In recent years, joint humanitarian missions, disaster response training, and climate adaptation projects have reshaped how nations view cooperation. When a typhoon strikes anywhere in Southeast Asia, it's often Filipino and allied teams that arrive first, with ships, food, and medical support. This humanitarian dimension has elevated the country's soft power, showing that strength can come from compassion, coordination, and readiness. Allies like Japan and Australia have publicly acknowledged this. They see the Philippines not just as a partner in defense, but as a leader in resilience. Another layer of strategic value lies in technology. As cybersecurity and digital infrastructure become the new battlegrounds of influence, the Philippines is investing heavily in digital sovereignty, protecting its data and modernizing government systems. Under new partnerships, the country is developing cloud-based defense systems, real-time monitoring of maritime activity, and secure communication networks with allied nations. In short, it's becoming a data hub as much as a geographic one. Of course, being strategic comes with challenges. Balancing great power competition is never easy. There are economic pressures, diplomatic tests, and public debates about sovereignty and independence. But the Philippines' approach, open dialogue, transparency, and focus on regional cooperation, has kept tensions manageable. It's not about taking sides, it's about ensuring the seas remain open, the skies safe, and the economy strong. That steady, principled stance is why the world now looks to the Philippines as a stabilizing force, rather than a flashpoint. It's easy to forget how quickly this change happened. A decade ago, few would have imagined that the Philippines would host multinational exercises, attract massive foreign investment, or be discussed in the same breath as strategic powerhouses. But the change didn't happen by chance. It happened because of vision, because leaders, workers, and ordinary citizens chose progress, partnership, and peace over fear and isolation. The country turned its challenges into opportunities, its geography into leverage, its humanity into influence. Standing at the edge of the South China Sea, you can almost feel it, the pulse of trade, the rhythm of tides, the invisible roots connecting nations. For centuries, these waters defined empires. Now, they define cooperation. And at the heart of it all lies the Philippines, a nation whose islands once seemed scattered, but now form the anchor of Asia's future. The Philippines may not seek dominance, it doesn't need to. Its power lies in connection, in geography, diplomacy, and spirit. That's how the Philippines became the most strategic country in Asia. Not by force, but by purpose. Not by might, but by meaning.